Hi everybody, my name's Joey, and I had something interesting happen a couple months ago. For many years, I made content as a fleshtuber. I streamed as a cam streamer, and that was fine, but eventually, for a bunch of reasons, I decided I wanted to get into VTubing instead. Now, a couple months ago, this is a decision I made on my own, without my community's input. I ran it by them a little and spent some time collecting feedback. Most of my community was never really all that into VTuber culture. A couple months ago, I had somebody come into my stream, and they were very into VTuber culture. They started asking all the questions. When is your debut date? Who would you consider to be your Oshi? I was excited to talk about it, but the rest of my community was like, what are these words? But it's not everybody's familiar with it, so I guess maybe if this video, I haven't come up with a title for this video yet, but maybe the title would be like, so your favorite fleshtuber just became a VTuber. What do you need to know next? That's a horrible title. I figured I would take a few minutes to go over some common terms and some common concepts, like in the VTubing space, just so that way, hopefully I can pass this to members of my community if it comes up again. Then I started thinking, maybe if I put it out there, other people might get some use out of it. So here we go. Here's some VTuber terms and stuff that you might want to know that might help you keep up with your favorite content creator who just became a VTuber if you're not into the space. But I think probably the first thing, so we mentioned it a little bit ago, is your Oshi, right? And that is in the VTuber space, so that's Japanese for to push. The idea is it's like, what content creator are you pushing? Who are you supporting? Who are you in the community of? If somebody asks about your Oshi, they're asking about what VTubers you watch, basically. They're asking about what VTubers you support, who do you like and why. There's also something called an Oshi mark, which a lot of VTubers will put in their like social handles and stuff like that. A lot of fans of those VTubers will put in their social handles, and that's basically some emojis that you can put in your handle or username to signify who it is that you're watching, who your Oshi is. There's also a similar term that some folks are using called a Kami-Oshi, which is like your big push. Who is it that you like? Who's your favorite, basically? But yeah, that's a big one. Another big thing to understand is debut and graduation in VTuber culture. And I think more broadly, like the roots that VTuber culture has in idol culture. Let's go one by one. So when a VTuber debuts, that's usually their big kind of coming out to the world event. The purpose is to get as many eyes on it as possible so that folks can check out the content and see if the content's going to be for them. In a lot of cases, the debuts might get a little far removed from that purpose, and ultimately it's down to the person. Lots of folks do lots of different debutee type stuff. VTubing got big through the agencies before indie VTubing really took off much, and a lot of the agencies, a lot of the time, they would have a section in a VTuber's debut where they talk about their favorite anime and stuff. That's becoming a lot less popular. A lot of the thinking is that it would be really easy to discuss one's favorite anime and find some common ground among new potential viewers. But the what's your favorite anime thing became a bit of a meme. Not everybody does that, especially indie VTubers tend to not do that because it's not the best look at what your content is going to be like. Anyway, debut, that's usually when the VTuber will come out to the world and stuff. It's also, for what it's worth, whenever I find a new VTuber, the first thing I'll do is look for a debut video or a debut highlight reel. If they do it right, it's a really great look at what that VTuber is about and like what kind of content they're aiming to make. I think a lot of the times with content creators, the content that they're making and the content that they are aiming for can be two very different things. If I'm gonna throw $5 at somebody for a sub, or if I'm gonna throw a little dono at somebody, then it's nice to know what kind of content that money is helping to fund. Another one is graduations in VTuber terms. That's like somebody moving on from content creation activities as that current character. Sometimes a graduation is, okay, I'm just gonna stop making content altogether. And sometimes the graduation is, I'm gonna stop making content as this character. For a lot of folks, they are playing a fictional character when they are streaming or making content. The character you're interacting with on the stream and everything that's an act, or it's an experience or whatever, but it's not necessarily true to who that person is. Some folks do the VTubing thing because it allows them to be their most authentic selves. If they were to graduate, that would usually mean either they're stopping the content creation or moving on to a character they can be a bit fictitious with. But a lot of the time, especially in the cases of agency VTubers, if they say they're going to graduate, then that character is no longer making content. But wouldn't it be weird if somebody else showed up with the very similar sounding voice who was that happens a lot, y'all. And that term graduation that comes from idol culture, which is a lot of like VTubing has its roots in idol culture, where like idols might support like a brand or something like that, but usually somebody in idol culture, their content is photos and art and stuff, but also like music, and usually they sing, sometimes they play musical instruments, sometimes they're making all the music themselves, sometimes they're not. Usually they're doing appearances and meetups and stuff like that, and in idol culture specifically, they undergo a lot of scrutiny in their personal lives and stuff like that, which is why for a long time it was considered that if you wanted to do VTubing, like you couldn't have a romantic partner, you couldn't have a boyfriend or girlfriend or be involved with somebody, because then what if your viewers found out? A lot of them would probably not be as happy and not be as willing to donate and stuff. It's also there's this weird like parasocial thing to it, which some people are like wicked into that. This is not the opinion piece for that. What are some other things that might be worth it to know about? So with graduation and stuff, another thing to consider is past lives. The stigma for that is breaking down, but generally it's considered respectful not to discuss the past life of a VTuber. So in other words, like past lives or reincarnation, that's if I quit making content as Joey Zero and I went to make content as some other character, which I'm probably not going to do because I've been Joey Zero forever, but if I'm going to do that, then generally the respectful thing to do is to not bring up my former activities, my former character and stuff like that. It's a bit of a taboo, but the stigma is breaking down quite a bit, I think. It's becoming more accepted to discuss those things because everybody knows anyway. I think the cases where it is considered to be like the most disrespectful, I think, is with agency VTubers. That's probably another thing to discuss, is agencies versus indie VTubers. So agency VTubers, those are VTubers who work for an agency. Imagine that. There are really big agencies and there are smaller agencies, but it's basically an agency is there. Usually they provide the VTuber with a bunch of support. Like a model is usually very expensive. Usually VTubers do well with the support of other folks to help them out. It's like video editors and managers and maybe like audio engineers, maybe somebody to help with like promotional assets and thumbnails. It really just depends on the agency. It depends on the person. Another big one for some of the bigger agencies is somebody to clear the copyright for you to be able to do your cover song, or for the VTuber to be able to play a game. Usually for independent VTubers, they are VTubers who are not associated with an agency. Their content creation is not associated with an agency. There you go. Usually they do everything on their own, or they hire freelancers to help them out. So that would be stuff like, if I'm an indie where I'm not with an agency, if I wanted to hire somebody to help with video editing, I would go hire somebody for that myself, which meant that I would have full creative control over it and everything. If I didn't like the way that a video editor edited a video, I could push back and be like, hey, can you change this? Or I could go with a different freelancer if I wanted to. With an agency, you're stuck with what the agency gives you. As far as I understand it, there's only so much of that stuff that's like public knowledge. But yeah, indie VTubers, it's creative control is completely in your hands. Whereas agency VTubers, usually it's a case of like they're hiring somebody to play this character. They already have the character and they're just hiring somebody to put a voice to that character, to act out that character's activities and stuff, which is cool, but it means you have a lot less creative control. Not every agency is the same. Some of them are really big, some of them are really small. Hashtags are going to be a big thing on socials. Usually a VTuber, whenever they debut, they'll present their hashtags, or usually you can find their hashtags in their like social description and stuff. And that's to help them find content that other people are posting that belongs in a certain category. That's also there for you to find their content if you're interested. Some VTubers might have an art tag, and then you could go look at that art tag to find more art of that VTuber that other people are posting. It wasn't necessarily posted by that VTuber. I think it's really cool. There's a lot of practices that are becoming more standardized in ways that just make sense, in my opinion. The model is probably the last thing we'll go into. A VTuber model, that usually refers to whatever rig a VTuber is using to showcase their persona on stream. So like my hair, which is green, and my eyes, which are yellow, like the anime boy that you see moving on the screen right now, that's my model. Usually they can be very expensive. There are less expensive ways to find models, or to get models, or to have a custom model. There are pre-made models that you can get. This was a pre-made model that I customized quite a bit. Usually the process to make a model and rig it and everything is quite complicated, I guess. If you want, I'm happy to make a video about that. If ever you see somebody come into a VTuber stream and they're like, oh, I love your model, they're talking about the moving art that represents the VTuber. That could be like PNG tubers. That could be like basically like flat image models that are kind of voice reactive usually. It can be 2D models like what you can see on your screen right now, or 3D models. It depends. Maybe we'll do a part 2 with really hyper-specific stuff if we can think of any. This has been fun. I hope this has been helpful. If you're coming here from my community because I sent you to this video, then hi, how's it going? Thanks for watching. I'm glad you're caught up. If you're not here from my community and you're just like came in here from YouTube or whatever, then hello. Welcome to my community. We'd love to have you stick around in the Discord and on the Twitch stream and subscribe and do all of the things. Leave a comment. Let me know where you're coming from. Okay. Cool. Is that it? I think we're done. Bye! I'm Joey, by the way. Bye!